Hello friends, this is Arindam here, and today I would do a technology demonstration of a system that I have been working lately as a response to the COVID pandemic. Now, you all remember that I had presented another technology demonstration on a free energy system that could provide food security uh, to people in India, and that became quite famous. And this I had done after the first wave had ebbed. And since the second wave had ebb now, I am presenting a second technology demonstration system that might help in recovery of the economic situation of this country. Having said this, uh, I think most of you remember how I was warning about the second wave, but uh, it was the IIT Kanpur team which came up with the idea and models that the second wave would not come. And when now my models are suggesting that the third wave might not come, they are insisting that there might be a third wave. Having said this, we have witnessed how the government's response. I and many economists have been shouting the government to do demand side economics, transfer money to poor consumers so the demands could be increased in the system. But the government was busy doing supply side economics. At the same time, we were arguing with the government to reduce the taxes on fuel, which would reduce inflation and which would save jobs. But the government did not listen to any of this, our suggestions. And I understand the economics that we have, which is based on the petrodollar model and printing of dollars. And the amount of dollars got printed in the last 1 year has to have some consequences. But lately, you guys know that I was working on something called the water standards, and many of you encouraged me to look into this option because 70% of human body is water, and how can economics be ethical if? And I'm looking at the option of how to make economics ethical by including the narrative of water standards in this. So today I'll be presenting a blockchain that would be implementing water standards and how to help, how to use this to build up climate change adoption narratives. Now I would do a technology demonstration of the blockchain. Now here you could see blockchain with the production launch in a Heroku app with the name of a peaceful hamlet and a pier with the name of afternoon and courage. These two could act as a different political units like districts in the case of India. And in the narrative of water standards, what I have been saying is the amount of water that falls in the district is the amount of Vridhi coins that would be given to these peers or these districts that they could distribute among its citizens. And we all know that places where there is more rain is usually are the places which are more prosperous. And but the idea of this Vidhi coin is that once you have that rain, you have about 1 year to actually spend the coins that you have for economic development, preferably in the field of climate change adaptation. Now I would do a basic transaction in the Vridhi blockchain and I'll show how it reflects among other peers. So here I click conduct a transaction and press the recipient and I'm giving him or her 200 Vidhi coins and I just press submit. It's successful, but just to reflect on a block I have to mine the transaction. So once it is successful, it would be reflected in the blocks uh, in the peer, and here you can see that from 1000 balance that I had given to the got 200 rupees and have gotten reward of 50 with the coins for mining. Now I would demonstrate how the user would interact with the Vridhi blockchain. So first the user needs a user ID. So I go and I actually log in with my MetaMask. So here I get a unique public address, and I had assigned 1,000 Vridhi coins already in my Vridhi blockchain to this address. So I'll get a balance. So when I click get balance, I should get the balance of 1,000 Vridhi coin that has been assigned to this customer as a minimum. In the next step, I'll demonstrate how an individual interacts with the blockchain ecosystem and makes money out of it. Before that, if you remember, I have given the idea of a new framework of circular economy based on Indian ancient wisdom and the Nalanda traditions, which were quantum physics traditions in that sense. And then a Russian scholar came and helped me understanding the system forming effects of the quantum physical models that I have been proposing for economics. After that, I had a conversation with our director, engineering college director, Dr. Arvind Kuchetkar, who was IIT Bombay's emeritus director. And that conversation and the document that I shared with him became the National Education Program narrative. And in part of the narrative, there was a module called Dragon Warrior Program. And in that Dragon Warrior program, now, as part of the Dragon Warrior program narrative of the National Education Initiative, I've talked about the steps, the epistemologies that is required to achieve liberation in the context of climate change. So, I had proposed Navratna products or the 9 systems that an individual needs to be an expert on to understand the true nature of reality in the present context. Uh, so the 9 systems are energy systems, water systems, climate systems, agriculture systems, or agriculture food systems, knowledge, livelihood, and education systems, financial systems like financial inclusions and financial health, health systems of the society and an individual, adventure sports, the spirit of adventurism, and spirituality or the training of mind. Now, next I would explain you how you can the epistemologies and how these systems actually interact with the blockchain. So to integrate these systems with the Vridhi blockchain, I have deployed these forms in ONA using ODK Collect systems. ODK Collect was extensively used during the COVID times for contact tracing, and many people are aware of this system. Now, how it be used, I'll just give a context of one by one on different epistemologies, but I'll just start with energy. Now, in the energy context, most of you people know how the energy models of agriculture were used to build up the framework of demand side management using agriculture and the narrative for smart grids and smart agriculture in India. It is through these GIS models that we came to we came to an understanding of how the demand and supply systems work and how renewables it could be used to integrate renewables into the grid. Uh, this type of GIS narrative became the government of India's narrative in the pandemic time as an economic recovery. Keeping this in mind, I actually had built up this form based on what I have been trying to work on, in a place called Buddha Garden, with organic farming and solar irrigation. Now I just put my name and my public key and fill up this form of how many units I've powers I've consumed and all, and then I submit this document. So here you can see a JSON request that came to the Heroku server as soon as I updated the owner form. Now, once this JSON request is received in the this system, the mining process starts, and this individual on this ID is awarded 50 Vridhi coins the for the submission that they had made. And this could be seen if you go back to the blockchain wallet. Now if I do get balance, you see that the balance has increased to 1050. The next system that we'll focus on is water and water systems and water management systems. And you must be aware of this famous Pani Foundation narrative of watershed management.
स्त्री पुरुष स्कूली बच्चे वृद्धजन सब लोगों ने जी तोड़ मेहनत की रोजंदारी जाऊनच शेतीत लोकांच्या काम.
And thank God we had started doing this narrative of Shramdan that in middle of the COVID pandemic, when so much migration happened, many of these migrant workers could be rehabilitated and given work under Manrega in the time of watershed development work that was done in Pani Foundation context. Uh, so can we give some Vridhi coins for water conservation work also? And that's a form that I have actually developed, which is integrating something like mulching, which actually helps in water conservation and water harvesting structure repair and all. So how much a simple form that got filled, and I submitted the form, and it got submitted in the Vridhi blockchain. Now, the complexity of the form and the amount of coins that could be given to each individual for the complex work that has he or she is doing can be actually programmed in the ODK forms that are here. And let's come to the third system of the Navratna products, the climate systems or climate narrative, which is the most important systems. And many of you know that I discovered a wave nature within the Indian monsoons, such, and that actually opens the entire Indian monsoon narrative to be analyzed in the quantum physics framework with having dual nature. Now, the finding of the wave nature actually helped plan the weather modification systems that we have developed uh, in India. And just to give some context of what is happening is you can see the waves that were predicted, and there there are the narratives of resonance, the places where actually cloudbursts are happening. The red lines are the places where cumulus nimbus clouds are, where actually lightning happens, and the places where you can actually do cloud seeding and stratospheric aerosols to actually help adapt people to climate change. And this year also, I've been doing something really strange, which was the earthquake forecasts. And many of you know that the earthquake forecasts are working really well in this context. I still don't know the science, but what I learned from tribals of Kutch district is something which I'm opening up to people. But thank God we started doing this in 2019, the weather modifications, that we had enough food and water during the COVID times. And India was never like we could distribute food and water to everyone in need during this time. Of course, there were lapses from the distribution side, But during the COVID pandemic time, the 2020 year, because of these predictions and the type of work that we did along with the use of along with the actions against the locust attacks, India in 2020 became the number one country in the world in terms of food production and supplying of food to many other countries during the pandemic times. So this was a great achievement on our side, and how to monetize these systems. So I actually have built up this climate form where again you have this the public key, and the understanding is how do you understand, how do you use this predictions in your daily life, and this is a simple form which you have and which you can submit, and you would be paid with. Now let's come to the fourth pillar of the Navratna systems, which is the agriculture. And with the farmers protesting against the three farm laws, this becomes the most important narrative in the present context of climate change. And many of you know that I was the first one who actually broke the barrier of climate change predictions in India, and that's the time series forecast at a district scale. And here you can see how the forecast in a time series could be used to actually provide advanced forecast for a maize crop, and how maize crop could be sown in a particular lat long region of the pilot that we did in the Telangana district, Telangana as district, Medak district in Telangana. And the most optimum way a farmer should be able to grow crops so that he gets the most optimal profits. Now, I know many farmers in India are using my forecasts, and the forecasting farmers have been communicating with me uh, about their problems. So, to understand this and to build up the narrative of sciences in agriculture, there's this pillar of agriculture where I actually work on agriculture best practices and incentivize this. Which agriculture? So, this is a form in which we are pushing for micro irrigation or mixed cropping also, and just get some information on them, and then I just submit the form, and then awarded 50 Vridhi coins. So the fifth pillar of the Navratna systems is education or livelihood services. And I've been working with a lot of farmers, and trying to understand how knowledge systems and livelihood are integrated. And in that context, I tried to build a tool which was called the My Olive Books, which is also part of the NEP, where information retrieval narratives and AI narratives are integrated so that we could know what an individual's interests are based on the type of uploads that they make. And this is a small demo of Olive Books on what it is. Student subscribes to a teacher. This is a flipbook experience that the Olive Book provides, where a PDF gets converted into a flippable format, which gives a feeling of a book. But on this, you can tag a content. And this is the interesting part, which builds up imagination. So this content, building up this content, opens a pop-up, which is in the third dimension. Need to realize, we need to understand that there's a lost generation that could not go, that didn't, was not able to go to schools. And see, I was working with I was trying to work with my mother to actually help some of these kids in the communities who are not able to get to school to actually do not lose in on education. At the same time, you all know we were all working with Vedantu and other agencies so that some kind of infrastructural education systems could be built and also provide help to kids who have been orphaned by the COVID pandemic. And how do I incentivize this process? And for this internal uh, system that they have, which is called the OROs, but it's not integrated with the 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 international monetary systems. But I don't know if Oracle wants to do it, but something like this could be integrated with other communities so that they can provide these services. So for that, I just filled up this form of name and public key and the volunteer strain and a simple form. And once you build up content in Olive Books, or you actually provide services, or you actually provide knowledge, or you provide livelihood to people, you have to be incentivized for that system, and that's where the water-based standards come in handy. And so I submit this form, and in return, you get 50 Vridhi coins in your account. And the sixth and important pillar of uh, the Navratna systems is actually finance or financial inclusion, and Vridhi blockchain is actually part of this whole financial systems. But I'm showing you a map of financial inclusion that I was working in the slums during my microfinance days. And lately, the chief economic advisor had to give this example of the way we're doing financial inclusion as a way for economic recovery. And I don't really agree with the way he uh, wanted to expose the whole banking systems to his adventurism. But anyways, this very understanding of working in the slums and working with poor people and working in financial inclusions and health systems actually made me understand, and I actually built up the narrative of how interventions of health and finances should be done in the slums of Dharavi and different slums of India in the COVID context. And we also all the GIS maps that were built in different cities of India and the world based on this kind of financial inclusion work. So this kind of knowledge and this kinds of understanding is necessary to have a healthy society where there is less violence. And so for that, this simple form that I'm filling, which is if you are paying 100% wages and you're selling your 50% of agriculture produce and selling value added systems and all. And so again, the water system and water based economics will incentivize you, and you'd get 50 Vritti coins on that on submission of this data. And it got submitted. The next and the most important pillar of the Navratna products is health. And we all witnessed how our healthcare systems were overwhelmed during this pandemic crisis and how we were completely unprepared for what hit us. Uh, Having said this, I had worked on the following healthcare interventions as part of a project funded by WHO and Wellcome Trust, and this was done in Koppal district in Karnataka, where there was maximum child mortality rates, and this is how the system was built.
The Smart Register mimics the look of the health worker's traditional paper register. One client is listed per row, and client data is entered according to pre-specified column headings. The health worker can switch between the different service modes in the register to view all the health service information for a client. Within each service mode, the health worker can enter healthcare updates by tapping on any of the service reminders. The reminders are color coded according to the urgency of the service due. Red indicates the service is past due. The health worker completes the reminder by entering the service information.
Now, I happen to work with ASHA workers and ANMs during this pilot testings, and those were the people who were actually the frontline workers during the entire pandemic and tried to keep the pandemic in check, and many were affected by the pandemic itself. But having worked with them, I had communicated their concerns to higher authorities, and tried a lot to provide them rights during the pandemic times. But these public health interventions has to be incentivized, and that could only be done through water standards. And so I have this another form which is the health, where you can work on like vaccinations and waste disposals, and here like different healthcare public health interventions. And then I submit the form, and once this form gets submitted, the individual, the public with the public key, is actually given 50 Vriddhi coins. Which, so this could be this based on the complexity of the work that is done. The coins could be different context. The next pillar of Navratna systems is spirituality, and it's about training the mind, because we believe that mind is the master and the body is the slave. So our body, if healthy mind in a healthy body, is also the narrative. And we understood that the strength of the mind was required during this pandemic crisis, because many had mental disorders, many people suffered from depression during this whole pandemic times, and it was about how the response to pandemic was also defined by the strength of the mind. And some of the trainings, some of this learning that we get are from the Yogachara and the Lanka Avatara Sutra schools, and this is how a demonstration of Acharya Raghu performing Yi Jing Jing from the Shaolin traditions of Bodhidharma. These are part of the soft Kung Fu traditions. And these traditions have to be incentivized. And as Bruce Lee said, be the water, my friend. So what better than using water standards to actually inculcate the ideas of spirituality and mind training into these narratives. And only through knowing these schools of 900 traditions you can understand the meaning of liberation. So this is the form that just a simple form depicting the incentives that has to be given to a spiritual teacher. And the form got submitted. And the last pillar for the Navratna systems is adventure sports. And you might be wondering, what is adventure sports doing in this narrative? Well, you see, adventure sports actually preserves the ecological systems. Places where you are encouraging adventure sports types activities, your nature actually gets preserved, because these are people who actually appreciate the nature. Apart from that, because I've been talking about liberation, kind of the adventure sports has the ability to actually build up like trigger the quantum switches in you, that actually helps you take you to the different quantum states of your mind. This was actually encouraged as per the Nalanda tradition. So, scuba diving and flying or mountaineering. Mountaineering is what exposes you to uh, different realities of life, and actually, it helps internally. It changes you, and that helps you liberating. And in this context, you can see the video of me submitting stock kangri in the Himalayas.
So, congratulations. Thank you. How do you feel? It's amazing.
And from the top of stock kangri, which is 21,000 feet, you can directly see K2 and Nanga Parvat in front of you. And what's interesting is the thing that the range that that you can see is the region where actually the conflict between India and China is happening, and it was very necessary that Indian army actually responds to China, because we have been bullied and we by these Western and Chinese foreign narratives, thinking that we don't respond back. And we've been talking about, so this is the way you take the ridge line to actually climb the peak, which is exactly what the Indian army did uh, in the Kailash range to actually overwhelm the Chinese forces over there. And that type of confidence was actually essential for the economic revival during the COVID pandemic times. So my experience in this field actually, uh, we needed this war, because war is sometimes good for economics also. A small conflict with, uh, and my experience in these kinds of mountaineering actually helped build up this economic narrative, which came in handy, and we came with flying colors with what happened with the Chinese forces there. So to incentivize the adventure sports, we actually have like another form which you can fill it up. And now, coming back to the wallet, with the wallet, after like submitting 9 forms, so we are expecting a balance of 450, 1450 that we got from this bank. And we checked this wallet after submitting the energy form, so it was 150. Let's see how much balance we have. Right, so we got 1450 as our balance. And what is the value of this coin, which is the question. And given the type of blockchain that is being maintained and the type of transactions that are being maintained, this coin could be traded in Binance or other networks against other blockchains, and the price of this coin could be actually linked to other blockchains via the trading. And then we can send like someone like a different recipient, like some Vridhi coins, and we get the balance of 1250. uh, Apart from that, uh, we can also have smart contracts integrated into it, something like what I had designed. And with the idea of a netizen center, which is actually the place where the mining of the blockchain with the solar would be done in a village. So this is the idea of a smart contract. Now, coming to the website that we produce, so this is the website where we are showing a basic transaction between farmers and a netizen center. Here we are trying to trade 100
mangoes over the netizen center. The following video explains how a farmer is registered and how a netizen center is registered and how the transaction happens over our system. So we added a farmer and then we added a netizen center in the same village, and then we traded mango variety 2, which is an organic variety, with netizen center and sold 100 such mangoes. So we get the transaction address, which is shown pending, and finally the transaction was successful.
So these smart contracts would be maintained in the Vridhi blockchain, giving more value to the blockchain. And from that, I was also actually working in the place called Buddha Garden in Auroville, which is doing organic farming. And it's a little bit of video of what is happening there. So and we need to understand that soil anchors civilization and soil rejuvenation has to be incentivized. And that's where the water standards actually come in help for people who, and increasing the income of farmers who are doing organic farming. Apart from that, the idea of Buddha Garden is a is a very unique idea, and uh, I've been talking about townships for the climate core that needs to be built to adapt to climate change, and for that having a Buddha garden inside where soil rejuvenation activities is taking place is a very good idea. And now I'm back to the peaceful hamlet side of the Vridhi blockchain, and this concludes the technological demonstration. And I know the day I publish it on the web, I'll be bombarded by various startups initiatives and government of India narratives of how great this system is and how it could be monetized. Having said that, you see, I've been told that uh, I should find methods to monetize the science, and given the narrative of paisa vasool science, when I see around people who build up the narrative around being penny wise and pound foolish, these systems couldn't work in that way. Having said this, I was also struggling with the fact that whenever I went and talked to any bureaucrats or any academicians, they always argued that Israel has a better technology and does better science. Here I proved that I have done better science in the field of climate change and better engineering and better ethical narratives than what Israelis are capable of doing. But having seen this, and now with the whole case of Pegasus, I won't dare pursue the bureaucrats for I don't know who might have been compromised. See, I was being targeted by Israel for the part of the climate change. I've been trying to tell this narrative to everyone. Now everybody has been, many people have been compromised, and that actually requires economic revamp in this narrative. And probably this is the solution. Second thing is I've been asking for the development of a climate core, which is a PSU, because climate is not my responsibility, and there are lots of liabilities involved in this. You understand that for the COVID work, government had offered me to apply to their systems. But what I've learned from the systems is that they always ask for a fall guy if things start going bad, and sometimes these systems might go bad. And this I've seen in the WHO project, and they actually find they were more busy finding fault in on people who are working rather than taking leadership in this field. And the same happened in the field of pandemic. Having said that, my father used to work in the PSU, and those systems, what I have seen, were more ethical and had more and better knowledge systems built in it. And going forward, the Vridhi blockchain should be integrated with a public PSU of climate core. And the reason, my father was paying me to do all the systems, which I was leading, and yeah, you can say that our systems actually saved lives and made the economic situation much better than what would have been the case with the kind of leadership we have. And that makes me wonder, what is the way forward? Is the type of greed, the type of unethical practices that are going in, and probably having a water standard for some of these narratives which are related to climate change is a better option than going for a market led or free market led narratives. So, signing out, thank you.